Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Zlatan's Fight Picks. Today we're going to do the recap of Fight Night, Holloway versus Allen. We're a little late, of course, very busy, but nevertheless, we're going to get this out of the way so we can do the new fight predictions tomorrow for this Saturday. So, it was a good night for us overall. It was a good night for the picks. It was a bad night for the parlay. The parlays actually did really well, except for the fact that the first fight, which was the most confident pick, was the fight that the guy got knocked out in. So, it was a little disappointing. Watched the first round, and Nicolau was going, as expected, was going around the outside. Good movement. Hard to hit, coming in and out, doing some damage, getting points, and moving out. And fortunately, there was a knee that was thrown when he was moving in off to the side. It was an unbelievable knee. It's really good. I gotta admit, the chances of that knee connecting out of 100 times is probably one. But it's the one time that it connected. And even though I like Royval as a fighter, I think he's an exciting fighter. I love watching him. That was definitely Nicolau's fight to win, and lightning in a bottle, right? So it worked out for him. He knocked out Nicolau. Nicolau fell. He attacked him. And then he just couldn't recover. That was a perfectly timed knee. It was a little bit lucky. If you ever look at the replay, Nicolau went off to the side, went off the center line. And the knee was thrown, was thrown, and in mid-flight, when Royval realized he was going to miss him, he actually flared his knee out and caught him just on the corner of his jaw. So it was an unbelievable knee. It was a good, well thrown. Unfortunately for us, it ruined the parlay. As we can see, this was the high probability pick. Now we take this out of the equation, and what do we hit? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 legs. This would have been the 7th leg if everything worked out. But it didn't. But overall, the picks, we had made one mistake. 2 mistakes with Pudilova, but Pudilova was a bad decision. If you watch that fight, she actually won that fight. They gave a split decision to the other girl, and it was a bad decision, and everyone thought there was no way. If the crowd was booing, the announcers couldn't believe it. It was a bad decision. Pudilova should have won that fight, but they gave it to the other girl, so that didn't work. I mean, beyond that, then we had the 50-50 and the wild card, and 2 of the 50 plus. So 2 of the picks actually came in. Only 1 mistake here, but it was part of the wild card. Depends how you want to count it. So really 1, 2, 3 mistakes. Possibly 4 if you want to count this one at most out of the 14 fights. So, I mean, it's not mistakes. We actually made 10 correct. So, going back through it, we picked Holloway. Holloway did win the fight, although Allen did, he did a good representation for himself. He came out really well. I was really actually surprised at how well he lasted. I was expecting him to fade a little more in the end. But Holloway outworked him, outlanded him. It was a clear victory. But Allen, to his credit, very strong chin, very accurate with his punches. He hits anybody else with those punches, and he's possibly knocking him down. And he cleanly hit Holloway multiple times. Holloway, having the fantastic chin, absorbed all those punches. And to his credit, Allen lasted the full 5 rounds, and he was strong right to the very end. So he's definitely improved, definitely. There's a lot of guys they're going to have a problem with him. He's going to be, probably the number 3 guy in the division. It's going to be a really good fight with him and who's the number 2 guy? Can't think of his name. But Holloway did beat him, but the guy actually looks well improved. It's going to be a real battle with Allen. That's going to be the next big fight. But as expected, Holloway did win. He was a favorite. Nicolau was a favorite, unfortunately. going on, we picked Algio. Algio, as expected, did really well. And as expected, TJ Brown, like I said, he looks great. Great wrestling. Fast punches. Hard punches. But for some reason, they just look better than they are. You know, everything about him looks better. It looks exciting, looks flashy, but he meets up the higher level guys, and they absorb everything he's landing. I mean, he looks great. It looks great. It just, for some reason, the guys at the top of the division or higher up can absorb what he's dishing out, and that's what happened. LGO absorbed his punishment and came back and found a submission win. And he landed his own strikes, and he got him on the ground, and he choked him out, as expected. So it was a good pick. Next one, we did a swap. After the weigh-ins, there was a switch I did. I was a little more enthusiastic and a little more confident in Zellhuber, even though in the end, he barely won that fight. Well, he won it clearly, but he definitely should have done a lot more, especially in the third round. I saw him dancing around for like 1 minute and possibly through 2 or 3 strikes. So he almost fell into that I'm not going to throw any more hypnosis. He fell in the last fight he lost. So it wasn't super stellar, but after the weigh-ins, I actually thought he looked really good. He was a lot bigger than what was his name? Yeah, where is this guy? Where are they? Come on, man. Yeah, the Veneta. Yeah, Lando Calrissian. Star Wars. Sorry, I watch a lot of Star Wars. I used to. Kids watch a lot of Star Wars. So Lando Veneta. So he was a lot bigger than him. So I swapped him. So I switched Jacoby over to where Zellhuber was, and then we'll get to that in a second. And then I put Zellhuber here. And then Cummings we picked with a high confidence pick. He definitely won that fight. It was an easy fight for him to win. It was scary because they both were retiring that fight. So anyways, Cummings was a good pick. Barboza, underdog. Well, what can I say? You know, I just didn't think Carantino is at the level of Barboza. And like I had said, there's Carantillo's game is to come forward and wear you down and nonstop, absorb all the punishment. And guess what? He got landed with a perfect knee and he couldn't absorb it. And not only that, as I said, like with that game plan, at some point, your chin slowly start to diminish, and maybe you can't execute that exact game plan where you're wearing them down and taking them into late rounds where your cardio is going to take over. So Barboza won. As expected, underdog. It's a good pick. We had moved Jacoby here. I had switched this to a 50-50 stopgap because I thought Jacoby should win this fight. Realistically, on paper, and how Mirzakhanov had done against Chikwu, I believe, where he kind of pulled out a rabbit out of the hat in the third round where he was losing that fight. I thought Jacoby was a good enough kickboxer to win this. So originally I had picked Jacoby, but when I switched it to a 50-50 is after I saw the weigh-ins. It was really weird in a way. Mirzakhanov didn't look good on the scales. He looked like he normally looks. He doesn't look great, doesn't look ripped. I mean, he probably could go down a weight class. But during the stare downs, I have not seen someone look so confident. Like, I don't know, he wasn't looking mean, he wasn't laughing, he was staring into Jacoby, staring up at Jacoby, because Jacoby was so much taller than he was. And he had this look on his face that it was fairly clear to see that Mirzakhanov knew he was going to knock this guy out. And he wasn't even worried about it, not even for a second. If you look at that stare down, if you look it up, just when they're looking at each other, look at the facial features and eyes of Mirzakhanov. When I saw that, I go, man, this guy's gonna win. So, but I still couldn't bet against Jacoby because realistically he should win. So what I did is I played the parlay. I played both of them. I played one with Jacoby and one with Mirzakhanov, and sure enough, Mirzakhanov won. As a matter of fact, that look in his eye was 100% correct because in the first round he almost ended Jacoby. He almost knocked him out. So, and you realize this guy has got really fast punches and really strong punches. Really, he's got big power, and when he throws his punch, it's hard to get out of the way. And when he lands with a lot of power. And Jacoby can take punishment. He can take a punch, and every time Mirzakhanov hit him, it was an impact. So, but Jacoby ended up getting it together, and he started to come back at the end, and he did really well in the third round. But definitely lost that fight, and got lucky he did get finished in the first round. But yeah, those weigh-ins, between seeing how the fighters look after the scales and how worn out they look after the weight cut, and just the face-offs tell you so much. Yeah, like I said, at some point I hope to have more time to do this, and then I'll do a third video in the recap of the weigh-ins, because that seems to change stuff. Nevertheless, we move on. Boser looked really confident in the weigh-ins. But unfortunately, the Edmontonian, the Canadian guy lost, and he lost decisively. And I mean, if he had gotten out of the first round, you know that Cutelaba was going to wear down and disappear. And hey, Cutelaba came out and attacked him, and Boser, I mean, either he was just not respecting the power of Cutelaba. Am I saying his name right? Cutelaba, yeah. Or he was just too slow to move out of the way of the punches, or Cutelaba was throwing him too fast. I don't know. He was very easy to hit, and he got hit. And I thought he was going to absorb the punches a lot better. He was getting hit by heavyweights. I thought he absorbed those punches pretty good. And now all of a sudden he couldn't take it. Now, I don't know if it's the weight cut, if it's a lighter weight class. I don't know. He didn't look good. He was definitely probably looked better as the fight went on in the second round, third round. But it was too late. Cutelaba finished him in the first round. It was disappointing. But that ended our parlay for this part. But overall, again, most of our picks were correct, and betting on each fight individually, we're way up. But next fight, Munoz. Well, guess what? Underdog. Told ya, Munoz, he's not out of it yet. Even though I like the way Gutierrez fights, I really like the way he fights. Pedro Munoz has fought the top guys. Nobody can put him out, and he's always in it. And he's got a lot of power. And sure enough, in the first round, he cracked Gutierrez so hard he almost knocked him out. So, and he almost ended the fight right there. But Gutierrez scrambled, and he managed to survive. After that, he didn't look like the same. He was definitely scared of the power. And Munoz kept going after him. He pulled it together. You know, at 36, he still looks good. And now you know where Gutierrez's level is, I guess. You know, how high he can really go. I don't think, of course, I never thought he could be at the top. But I think this is where the high water mark is for him. Nevertheless, good pick, underdog. We had picked Rodriguez after the weigh-ins. I had switched it to Robertson just because of the size difference when we actually see these fighters next to each other. And seeing how Robertson loses because she's always undersized and she's getting pounded on. In this case, she wasn't undersized. She was oversized. And once they got on the ground, you know what? It just didn't look like she was going to lose this fight if it got to the ground. And it didn't look like Rodriguez was going to keep it from the ground. So I had switched it over to Robertson, which was good. And obviously, Robertson showed what this is definitely her weight class. She should definitely stay in this weight class. She'll do better. And she showed it. Next fight, Pudilova. Well, Pudilova fought Edwards, and Pudilova won this fight. And unfortunately, the judges gave a split decision to Edwards. And realistically, Pudilova won the first round. And I think at the end of the last 20 seconds, Edwards got up and threw like 3, 4, 5 punches when she got up off the ground after being controlled for about 2 minutes and hit a few times. And apparently that was probably enough to sway some of the judges to give her that round. I don't think it was enough. Edwards wasn't throwing very much volume. Edwards was not doing typical Edwards fashion. She wasn't throwing a lot of volume, and she was landing, and she was getting landed on, but she was also getting controlled, and Pudilova managed to get her on the ground, which was what I was expecting. It was disappointing. Definitely a bad decision for sure, 100%. Like, that was the worst decision of the night, but nevertheless, we had picked Pudilova. She was the favorite. Lost. So we go to the 50 plus. These are the ones we expected. Garcia, Bolanos, and Brazil. Those are the ones we expected to win. 2 of them won. I said you're probably better off betting the wild cards on this because they'd have a definite path to victory. Gomes did come through. Realistically, if you look at the odds and the payouts, whether you had picked all 3 of these or all 3 of these, the payouts would have been the same. You would have lost little money on either group, or if you do individual bets. But just going from a correct standpoint, we expected these ones to win, and these were the wild cards. We only got one wrong on this one. The other 2 did definitely win. Garcia won in fantastic fashion. Very dominant performance against a really tough Clay Guida. A lot of people have a hard time fighting Clay Guida. Garcia did fantastic. He's definitely improving. He's a guy that I don't think he's ever going to win the division, but he's definitely a guy to watch. And I think he's made some huge improvements. He's a little short for the division, and Clay Guida kind of played into that because he's about the same size as Clay Guida, or the exact same size. So that helped him. So he's always going to be at a disadvantage with a longer, rangier fighter. But overall, he's well-rounded, got lots of power, good on the ground. Hard to take down. Obviously, Clay Guida couldn't take him down. So, nevertheless, Bolanos, this was going to be a close fight. Bolanos definitely got, the more active fighter. Phillips came out of a long layout. It looked pretty good. But nevertheless, didn't do enough. Bolanos definitely won. Brazil, this is the big question mark with Brazil. Like, she looks so good. And like I said in my review of the fight, is like, who has this girl really fought? I mean, she hasn't fought anyone really, and she looks really good. She looks really technical and really pretty on the feet, but she looks kind of wimpy. I don't know. She doesn't look really strong, and the people she beat are really low tier people. Gomes, on the other hand, fought some really tough competitors in the UFC, and made a good accounting of herself, even though she lost. So she's a real grinder, and she's a real dog. And I mean that in a good way. And then, sure enough, she showed the dog. She showed the dog to the Brazil, and she just grinded her. And she was tough, and she kept coming forward, and she attacked her on the ground. It was. This is where my big question mark was with Brazil. What happens when she fights somebody at a UFC level? And we found out she's gonna lose. So, nevertheless, overall, we did well. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 correct. 10 correct, and let's say if this one was wrong, 4 wrong. Overall, we're doing great. But nevertheless, this one was the key, because this would have got, with that parlay, would have definitely made some decent cash going all the way up to this guy here. But it didn't quite happen. We're close. We're getting so close. It's so close. It's so close. I can taste it. It's getting there. But hey, it's a fist fight. You never know what's going to happen, right? Boom. Somebody steps the wrong way, they get knocked out. That's what happens to That's what happened to Nicolau. And realistically, he's the better fighter, even though I think Royval's a good fighter. And I love betting on Royval. But Nicolau is definitely the more talented fighter. And you run this, you fight 10 more times and Nicolau wins every one of those other times. But hey, you never know. Maybe Royval hit a new gear. I don't think so. At this point, he's 30 years old. Oh yeah, maybe he's peaking. we'll see what happens in the next fight. But nevertheless, if you like this video, hit like. If you want to get notifications for the next one, which will be tomorrow for the fights on Saturday, hit subscribe. And yeah, until next time, thanks for joining me.